Shall we start? Excellent. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, our topic in our weekly power hour is beginning to believe. So the question we're going to start off with is, if you had no fear, who would you be?
Happy. The other me.
Okay, so there are two ways to ask this question. One is if you had no fear, and the other is if you knew you couldn't fail. And they're both different sides of the same coin, because failure, of course, and thinking of failing is a fear of failure. And anything that we fear in the future is simply a result of experiences that we've had in the past. And it's either experiences that we've had or that we've observed other people having, and we absorb and take on the trauma or the scarcity or the impact of whatever those things are, and then we carry those forward into fears. And I want you to imagine that every single one of us, when we are fearless, literally in our pure, unadulterated, fearless selves, we are light that is brighter than the sun. Okay, I just want you to envision that for a second. Okay, now what happens is every fear or every failure that we experience in life, whether it's a comment someone makes to us when we were a kid, or we get embarrassed, or something happens, and then we get a big blackout curtain put over our light. And every failure experience, every fear that we absorb becomes another blackout shade, another blackout shade, another blackout shade. And little by little by little, our light gets dimmed and dimmed and dimmed and dimmed and dimmed and dimmed. But what we have to remember is that every Jew has a light inside that cannot be put out. It's like we have a pilot light. And so as we start to become aware of these things, there are things that we can do to start getting rid of those blackout shades. But I want to ask you something. Do you ever feel like you've become locked into certain patterns or certain habits or a certain phase of life, and then it feels like so hard to change or to let go or to become something different? And it doesn't matter how many times we wake up in the morning and we tell ourselves, today's the day. It's the new me. And then somewhere around time, 5,559, we don't even believe ourselves anymore, because we've stopped and started so many times, or we have said we were going to do something and we've broken promises to ourselves. And of course, what we don't ever stop to think about is the promises that we break to ourselves are the most expensive broken promises of all. Because what that does is it erodes at our personal integrity, at our integrity of self, in our belief in ourself. And as that starts to happen, then our self-esteem and our self-worth and all these things start to, again, another lampshade, another blackout shade, something else that is keeping us. When I was a kid, when I was 3 years old, I was kicked in the head by a horse. And I had to, obviously they took me to the emergency room. I was with my neighbors, with their horses. And this was my first memory. If you have early trauma, you remember them far earlier than other typical memories. And so I remember that we went ahead of the ambulance because my neighbors didn't want to wait on the ambulance to get there. So the ambulance ended up following us to the hospital. And I was riding on the lap in the passenger seat of the neighbor's wife as they were taking us to the hospital. And my parents say that when they got to the emergency room, they thought I was dead. But when it was a small hospital, small town, so when they went through the sliding glass doors, they could hear me screaming. And so that was their sign that they knew that I was alive. But the point to this story is, in order to keep me still, because they were trying to do surgery on my head and my hands and my feet were kicking around, they put this big, huge royal blue lead blanket over my, almost like those blankets you get when you're going in an x-ray. the weighted blanket, right? And I think that traumatized me more than the horse.
Yep. Oh, wow.
Okay? Because I was so freaked out at not being able to move. And this is the image that I have whenever I think of all of the fears and the failures that we layer on top of ourselves over and over and over again, that they completely paralyze us. Underneath, we're, just flailing about and trying our best to make progress, but we're completely weighted down and unable to move. So this is what we're going to focus on today. This isn't a quick conversation. It's not an overnight fix, but it is entirely possible to overcome the old habits of being yourself. Okay, now I want to preface what I'm saying. When I say overcoming being yourself, I don't mean you're going to become someone else. I don't mean that you need to show up in the world fake. Obviously, we're going for our genuine best every day. But what I'm talking about is those bits of us that we are praying and dreaming and dying to let go of, and we just can't figure out how to turn the page. You with me on that? So this very much connects to what we've been speaking about over the past Power Hour sessions ever since the high holidays, because whether we are college students, working moms, professionals, grandparents, truth seekers, whatever is our role in life, and most of us are a hybrid of some of these, we are all put here on this earth at this specific season right now for a very important and powerful reason. On the universal timeline right now, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe was very, very adamant in teaching that we are in the last generation of exile and the first generation of Geula, which means the ultimate redemption in this world. And this word, the ultimate redemption, it's a very vague word. And depending on who you ask, you get all sorts of different answers. But the Rebbe teaches that in the initial stages of the redemption, so there are phases of the redemption. And one of the things that we're going to learn and that we've been focusing on is that because we are all one body as Jews, the Rebbe is teaching us that the first piece, the first flash of redemption is where we're having Geula moments. What is a Geula moment? It means when I step out of Galut into my personal redemption in my mind. It's a mindset shift. So if I'm struggling with something and I have a win, for example, if I want to bite my husband's head off and I choose patience or joy instead, no joke, that's a Geula moment, because I'm working on myself, and instead of being stuck in an old mindset of responding to him and reacting subconsciously, and I choose to pause instead, that is a Geula moment, okay? And what happens is everything is energy. We know that. And so as each time that I have a Geula moment, it gives more flashes of this light into the world. Okay, now that's kind of a deep concept, and it can sound very esoteric if we don't know how to apply it in our daily life. But what we're going to walk away with today is understanding how we can learn how to shift and upgrade and transform our mindset so that we can begin to step into our full God-given power that for most of us has been lying very, very dormant for a very long time. So I want to ask you another question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of your full capacity would you say you're living at right now? Of your potential power, your potential greatness.
Mentally or physically?
That's up to you to decide. Okay, so you see, it is our life's mission and responsibility to step up to that call, to figure out why is it that I'm here. And what we have to understand is that all the gifts we've been given, how many of you, without even trying hard, you can think of a few special gifts that you have? Yes? We can all come up with a laundry list of things that we need to fix. Okay, that's no question. but we can at least come up with a few things that we know are good and special about us. Believe it or not, that combination of the quirks we want to work on, the character flaws, and all of the good things are your unique package that when you assemble all of those things together, that becomes your superpower. How is that so? There is no such thing as a mistake in life. That's one of the things that we learn from divine providence, from Hashgacha Pratis. And there are no mistakes. There are only lessons learned. Now, are there poor choices we've made in our past? Of course there are. But one of the elements of divine providence, Hashgacha Pratit, is that up until, we talked about this a few times, up until we make a choice, we have the full power of choice. As soon as we've made the choice, it's divine providence. It's exactly what it was meant to be. Okay? And now, of course, we're going to learn from that choice. We're going to have consequences, the good, the bad, and the ugly from whatever those choices are. But when we can start to realize this, we can start to let go of all of that psychoanalyzing, hypercritical judgment of ourselves of whatever happened in the past, okay? Now, we know that as Jews, as a Jewish people, we've been given a specific job from Shemaim. What's our job? That's right. We're here to be a light to the nations. We're here born to lead, born to serve. And that's not an ego thing. It's something that we should absorb with a lot of responsibility and a big dose of humility, that this is a very, very big job that we've been given. But like we've talked about many times, sometimes Jews get confused. And we get sucked into the trap of trying to follow the world, the non-Jewish customs and practices, instead of leading them. So one of our biggest tasks is literally doing a mental detox, scrubbing our brain from all of the confusion and the distraction. Now, why is it so important that we repeat this every single day? How often are your distractions flying in your face? All day, every day, nonstop. How long is that voice in your head going at you with all of the self-loathing, judgment, criticism, doubt, fear, all those things that are on repeat? It's literally happening every nanosecond. Okay, so then we go to a class once and we think, I should be fixed by now. What's wrong with me? Okay, our reprogramming of the mind and our mindset and our belief systems has to be just as consistent as the toxicity. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance. Okay, so this is why some of you have heard me talk about this class on bitachon. It's an audio that's a 10-minute audio every day. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you sometimes I have to listen to the same 10 minutes over and over again 4-5 times in the same day. Just retraining the brain over and over, because even if I do that 5 times and I can basically speak it back to him because I've heard it so many times I've memorized it, that's only 50 minutes total versus the other 23 hours and 10 minutes that I have the toxicity, because I promise you it keeps going while we're sleeping, because the subconscious mind never turns off. And the subconscious mind is where our deep-rooted programming lies. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to get into that subconscious and start uprooting that. Because if we're only focused on the conscious level of what's happening, we don't stand a chance. Okay? How many of you have done a good amount of work on learning or studying conscious mind versus subconscious? Okay, good. It's a very, very popular thing these days. And it's something that I think is extremely important for us to stop and figure out, how does this work with, say, the Torah? How does it work with Jewish life? How does it work with all the things that we are taught? And of course, the truth is that it comes from Torah. It was given to us, all of the wisdom of it was given on Har Sinai. And if you look at any self-help personal development, professional development book that has been published in the last 100 years. It all came from the roots of Kabbalah, Zohar, Hasidus. And the only difference is that now, in the times of the ultimate redemption, the layers of the initial stages of Geula, this wisdom is finally being made available to everyone. That's why it's so accessible. My son, who is in school in Florida, this week he's working on an extra credit thing, and part of his extra credit, he's at what we call a yeshiva for free spirits in South Florida, okay? It is the most loosey-goosey, definitely not rigid Jewish school you've ever seen in your life, okay? He is in heaven at this school, okay? It's completely based on character development, but he's working on earning a trip to New York, and part of what he gets bonus points for is learning this mimer of the Rebbe called Basi Lagani, which is so deep. I've read it 100 times. I can't even understand the first 4 words. Like, it is so over my pay grade. I can't even tell you. But what was he able to do today? Put it in Chat GPT. Give me Basi Lagani for a teenager.
No way.
Stop it.
Basi Lagani.
Yes.
Basi Lagani.
Okay?
Sorry.
So this is the level we can access. And the Rebbe always said, and our sages say, in the end of times, we're going to be able to outsource and delegate everything, and the light of Torah is going to shine through. That means that it is distilled in such a way that all of us can understand it and really learn from it, okay? But if we're going to start moving in this direction, okay? First of all, do you have your number? On a scale of 1 to 10, it wasn't a theoretical question, so I want you to think a minute. On a scale of 1 to 10, of your full maximum capacity, of your potential power, you don't have to say it out loud, don't worry, but get your number in your head. You got it? Mm-hmm. Okay, now, think for a minute, what if you were able just to graduate 1 notch? 1 level up. Do you think it would make a difference in your daily life? Absolutely. Okay, so here's the most important thing, okay? How do we embrace this awareness and this knowledge to where we can actually start applying it and internalizing it in our lives in a practical way? Because, it's all well and good if it's like out here as this cool theory that's inspiring, but inspiration at the end of the day really gets me nowhere. A lot of times if I go to something inspiring, I end up the next day more depressed than when I started, because I'm like, well, one more thing I didn't do, So the objective here is to internalize it, right? Take it in and make it a skill. And our belief systems are the autopilot that our life is running on. And everything that you do throughout the course of your day is rooted in a belief system. How you show up, how you walk, how much confidence you have, how much belief you have in yourself, how much you earn on a monthly or annual basis, the way you talk to your children, the way you talk to your parents, the way that you conduct yourself in business, the way your house looks, the way your car looks. Everything about us is based on belief systems that we have inherited, okay? So here's the most important thing to know. It is physically impossible by the laws of nature, which of course we know are Hashem, physically impossible to outperform your beliefs. Do you know this? So if I don't believe something is possible, it doesn't matter how many times I watch the show or go to the stadium and cheer, it is never going to happen for me. Now, there are 3 levels of believing something is possible. I can believe it's possible in theory. I can believe it's possible for someone else. And I can believe it's possible for me. Those are the 3 levels, okay? And it's possible to be holding at different levels for different things. Now, each one of you do things automatically that I'm like, if only I could do that. Okay? For example, Geraldine speaking in French. She sounds so beautiful and romantic. Okay? And she's like, well, I don't even think about it. I've been doing it since I was born. Why? It's the language she was taught from birth. And she's been doing it over and over and over and over again. And we can train our mind to absorb new belief systems just like that. So I want you to think about one habit or one belief system you would like to release. Okay? Anybody have anything you want to share? You're brave enough to share out loud? Gabby, let's hear it.
Showing up late to clinic.
Showing up late to clinic. Okay.
I am that doctor that shows up late to clinic.
Okay, fair.
There's good days and there's bad days, and it's just like, like that 8, my clinic starts at 8, I'm always like 8:15.
Oh my
And I have
gosh.
to wake up at 6. It's not like it's just a thing. I can't. So yes, that's one thing.
Okay, good. That's a good one. Being late. Okay. Anybody else? Gila.
Relationship with food, and you put the cake in front of me.
Ah, or maybe you sat down in front of the cake. The cake was there first.
I think it was there, but I hold my hands. No, but I'm serious. It's ups and downs, and
Yeah, I hear you. Ilenit.
My relationship with my kids.
Oh, good one.
It's like I want for the best for them,
Yeah.
but it comes out
Yeah.
where it's just like, why I'm so harsh with them?
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
good.
want the
That's a
best
good
for
one.
them, but
Yeah.
it comes out
Yeah.
so.
Jewish mom.
Yeah. I didn't say it. Okay. Daniela.
I'll give the alternative.
Okay.
The way that I speak to my parents.
Oh, amazing. Good. Okay, so we all have programs that are running on autopilot in our subconscious mind in the form of bad habits, negative self-talk, and those things that we just wish we could delete from our mainframe, right? And if we can start to just loosen the grip on our automatic response system, then we can start to make way for those new truths to come out. So let me give you an example. I am telling you that you are a daughter of the King. Okay, we've talked about this many times in the past, that you are so loved, it's as if you are the only child of the King of the universe. That's how much we were loved. Now, if we really understood how much we were loved and how much Hashem has worked with gifts of love to intricately design the details of our life, we would show up differently. Okay? But most of us, we have experiences in our childhood with rabbis or teachers or trainers or other religious people or even non-religious people having criticism. And in their limited view, they make statements to us about God, about Torah, about religion, about Jewish faith. And we then absorb those non-true statements. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I heard someone telling me that someone was talking to her that whatever is showing up in her child is punishment for the things she did in her past. Now, that is the most Gallistic, exile, fire and brimstone thing I have ever heard in my life, and it is completely not true. Okay, now, do we have responsibilities? Do we have consequences? Absolutely. But if we go through life, and by the way, that is very, 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 very opposite of what the Lubavitcher Rebbe teaches. Completely opposite. But when we absorb these belief systems, they don't make us really excited to get up and learn Torah every day, because it's like a very oppressive, minimizing, archaic, yucky feeling. Why do I want to get up and do that? Okay, so when I say you are the daughter of the King, some of you are like, wow, I'm really loved. Some of you are like, that means nothing to me. Some of you are like, what king? Okay, so because of our past experiences, it's a filter that we put the truth through. Does that make sense? Okay, now, I'm telling you that you're limitless and powerful beyond measure. Janet couldn't even look me in the eye when I told her that just now. Okay? She had to break away. Okay? I'm telling you that you have been sent here for a unique and divine purpose that literally no one else in the history of the universe could accomplish. But up until now, we've been playing small. We all have. It's what we've been programmed to do by this world. So if we really want to step into our greatness, into our true potential and purpose and power, the very first thing that we have to do is decide we're going to start increasing the healthy, abundant beliefs that are in Emmett, that are true. And we are going to start actively detoxing from the old limiting beliefs that no longer serve who we are. Okay? And I told you that my former fiance, John Bon Jovi, once said...
Does he know?
Never mind. Irrelevant. He says, don't be so stuck on who you are that you miss out on who you want to be, on who you were born to be. Okay? Now, remember, reality is what you make it. And the subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. This is something that I've been studying for over 20 years. And as I started to look at the subconscious mind and the Jewish people, what I started to learn really made a lot of sense. Okay? We've been attacked, oppressed, chased, slaughtered for 3,000 years or so? And, this obviously gets into a person's psyche, and these belief systems, it's now been proven by science that these belief systems transfer generationally. Just like I can inherit the tendency, say, to have an ingrown toenail, I inherit fears and scarcity mindset of my grandparents. Okay. Now, on the outside, we can say, yeah, we're believers and sons of believers. But on the inside, what are we really believing? How many of you wake up every day and you're like, oh my gosh, I am awesome. This day is awesome. The world is awesome. Only good things are waiting for me, chasing me down and going to knock me over. And I cannot wait to see what kind of awesome abundance is going to unfold in front of me today.
That's a dream. Doorstep waiting for you.
Right? Now,
I can say my 2-year-old does every day.
yeah, good. See, why? Because he's still pure light. Okay? So now, there are a couple of extremely powerful universal laws of nature that are at play here. And we're going to come back and even break down what does laws of nature really mean, okay? But for now, let's just look at the basics, okay? First of all, the subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. I'm going to give you 2 examples. First example is a tragic story of a man who died of hypothermia when he accidentally locked himself in a walk-in freezer and he was trapped there overnight. And when they found him later, he had written a note to his family with a pen and paper he had found inside the freezer and left it beside him. Now, the tragedy is that the people who found his body also discovered that the freezer was unplugged. It wasn't cold at all. He believed he was freezing to death. And his body actually went into hypothermia.
Wow.
It's a form of torture they do on people where they tell them they're going to burn them and they don't actually, and they touch them with something and their skin actually burns.
Really?
Yeah, this is the second example, actually.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
no, you're good. There's a group of kids, a group of young men. They went on a ski trip, and at night they were all going into the hot tub. But one of the guys had a trauma from a burn when he was very, very young. He had been in a fire and was traumatized by the fire as a kid. And so he was deathly afraid of anything hot, of burning. And he had never been into a hot tub. because he was so afraid of, just from the trauma of the burns. All the guys got in first. They promised him it's fine, everything is good. Like they're all sitting there relaxing, enjoying, having a great time. They said, just shut up and get in. Look, we're all here, everything's fine. He got into the water, he started screaming, jumped right back out, and they had to take him to the hospital for 2nd-degree burns because he believed he was burning. Okay, so this is the power of the subconscious mind.
So what happens
What?
if somebody thinks he's very smart, he becomes smart?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the law of the bumblebee. The bumblebee, by body mass and little tiny wings, should not be able to fly. But guess what? Nobody told that to the bumblebee. They defy science every time they fly. Now, this is the power of the subconscious mind. What you believe is true in your world. So you and I could be living right next door to each other with entirely different realities, simply because of the best example I ever heard of it is, think of it that each one of us, when we were born, we were planted as little rosebuds in a garden, and all of our life experiences are our soil. So we're born into soil from our parents and our parents' parents, all the way back. So we come with a lot of baggage already in that soil. And then everything else that happens to us throughout our life goes into that soil. And then, of course, that determines how healthy and beautiful our blooms are going to be, okay? So we're talking about, this is the power of the subconscious mind. But what is the subconscious mind? It is the engine room of your entire being. So I want you to think of it this way. Your conscious mind is the captain of the ship. It says, hello, troops. Today we are sailing to Hawaii. Okay? But if all the little minions down in the engine room can't get their act together, or they decide that they're going to Florida instead, no matter how much I'm saying, let's go this way, all the little guys in the engine room paddling and doing everything that they can and putting the coals on the fire in the old-fashioned ships, I'm never getting to Hawaii. No matter how many times I set my goals, no matter how many times I say this is what I want to do, no matter how many times I try to get there through sheer willpower, it's never going to happen, because all of those belief systems are like a death grip on my ankle, keeping me shackled to exactly where I want to go. Now, the subconscious mind is a collection of everything that happens in your being without you knowing it. Now, we need the subconscious mind very much. It's how your heart keeps beating while you're sleeping. It's how your blood keeps pumping. It's how your cells keep reproducing. It's how everything that happens in your world keeps going. It's also how you get to work without even knowing when you get in the car and you space out and you're doing 14 other things, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here I am. Okay? So our subconscious mind is also the storage room of all of our beliefs. So the moment I kick into autopilot, guess what takes over? All those old beliefs. How many times do we go into autopilot during the day? You know, I read once that over 90% of what we do is on repeat. From the way we get up in the morning, go to the bathroom, brush our teeth, set the coffee, get in the shower, check our phone. Literally over 90% of what we do in the day is on autopilot. And coming at you just as forcefully as keeping you alive are the belief systems that are keeping us stuck. Okay, now this can be overwhelming and depressing, or it can be empowering, because now we can understand what to do about it, okay? And it is definitely an uphill battle, but it's the human condition. So, have you ever heard the phrase, I'm a product of my raising?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how many of you can think of things that your parents and grandparents said or teachers said, things that are just mediocre at best, just dripping with scarcity and smallness. And well, who do you think you are? That's not what people like us do. Okay, and all of those things. And yes, it's true that all of those made us who we are. And yes, we are absolutely a product of our circumstances, but we are also still fully responsible for who we become. So if I live my whole life, blaming my parents, my circumstances, the government, my teachers, the taxes, then I'm nothing more than a victim. I'm completely powerless to affect change. And I'm a prisoner in my own body. What a waste. Okay, so if we remember, I cannot outperform my beliefs. So if we have limiting belief systems, our only option is what?
Change.
Get to work changing our beliefs. Elevate them, transform them, or just completely replace them with new ones that serve you better in this new era of life. How many of you know the story of the 4-minute mile? Okay, this is one of my favorite stories. Favorite stories. This is about it's another story about overcoming perceived limitations. So it's about a man named Roger Bannister, who was an English athlete in the mid-1950s. And he was a part-time amateur athlete. He was also in medical school. And for years, the idea of running a mile in under 4 minutes was considered impossible. By science, by law, by feats of medicine, doctors, coaches, experts, they said it is they claimed it is impossible beyond the limit of human ability to run a 4-minute mile. Many runners had tried and failed, and they just proved over and over again that it's not possible, okay? So, of course, along comes Roger Bannister, and one of the things that he does that's different than any other athlete had done before his time is he focused not just on his physical performance, but he focused also a lot on visualization, focusing on the outcome, what he wanted to do. And when he ran his race, he also had 2 pacers that he picked running right beside him, pushing him along. And he finished the race at 3 minutes, 59 seconds, and 40 hundredths of a second. Completely shattered what everyone thought possible. Now, here's the crazy thing. Within 30 days after that, somebody broke his record. And then since then, people are, that's in the 50s. So now it's like, you're slow if you run a 4-minute mile.
They have better shoes.
Not me, okay? But again, what does this teach us? It was not a physical barrier. It was a mental, psychological barrier, okay? So by breaking this barrier, what the message he put out into the world is that most of the limits that we accept on ourselves are purely self-imposed. Okay, so you heard the old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This is why. Okay, yeah.
We've never heard that.
You've never heard that? Oh, okay. So what happens if I'm feeling small? Or if I'm feeling insignificant? Or I'm feeling powerless in my situations? That ever happened to anybody? Or just me? Yeah. There is no such thing as a wasted person. Only wasted potential. Now, in my world, potential is a bad word because it means we have so many gifts that we're just not tapping into. Okay? So what we have to learn how to do is to harness that potential. But how do we do that? We start where we are. So what that means is that we look around at everything that's happening. We look at our job. We look at our family. We look at our home. All of these circumstances, I know you've heard the phrase, bloom where you're planted. Yes? Okay, it's an English phrase. So it means I've been planted right here in my circumstances. This is where God put me. There's the other phrase, the grass is always greener. On the other side, we wish we were somewhere else. But what we learn to do is realize where I am right now, this soil, this is my starting point. And I have infinite possibilities of where I want to go from here. So as I start to work on myself right now, I strengthen and grow and strengthen and grow and strengthen and grow the vessels that I have to create and bring more abundance and health and healing and light into the world. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, there have been times in my life where I felt like I had everything to give, like on top of the world, mountaintop experiences where everything is going great and you think you can't fail and you can't lose. And then there have been times in my life where I felt like I truly had nothing to give, like rock bottom, just completely broken. And do we need to work on them?
Yes.
Shh. Moshe, can y'all give us about 10, 15 minutes or just shut the door and the windows?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're distracting our class, homie.
Sorry.
Okay. So those times when I've been like rock bottom, just completely feeling empty and lost and scattered and overwhelmed and don't even know where to start. Like don't even know how to start putting the pieces back together. And around that time, I heard a story that completely shifted my perspective. And I want to share the story with you. There was a young Jewish boy who lived in a small village several hundred years ago. He was an orphan. He was completely uneducated, knew nothing whatsoever, didn't know how to read, knew nothing about the world around him. And he was just a pauper. Okay, he just took odd jobs here and there wherever he could to try to survive. And this was back in the day where most Jews were connected to Torah in some way. Like they went to the shul, they had the poor people's shul, the rich people. There was massive separation of classes. Okay, he went into the shul on Yom Kippur. He knew he was supposed to be there, but he was an orphan. Nobody cared about him. Nobody raised him. Nobody taught him anything. And he could see all the people praying and learning and having and he was like, he felt like this small being there. Because what could he offer? What could he give? He didn't even know what he was supposed to be doing. He knew he was supposed to be there, but he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing. So he gave up, he left, and he went out into the field. And while he was wandering around feeling very despondent and hopeless, an idea came to him. And he said, you know what? I may not have anything to give, but I can give the little of what's left in me. And you know what he started to do? He started to do somersaults and run around and jump and dance. And he was singing at the top of his lungs. And he was throwing rocks up in the air, like singing it. It's like, all I have to give you, Hashem, is this rock. Literally, he threw a rock up in the air. And then he was doing somersaults and jumping around and dancing. And he was like giving a physical offering to Hashem. The only thing I have to give you right now is a dance. I have nothing else to give. And he got so winded from doing this, he finally passed out, like fell out on the ground. Took a few minutes, get up. Third time he stands up and he throws the rock into the air again after he's given it everything he's got. Do you know what happened? A hand came from heaven and took the rock. Caught the rock. And that hand was an extension of Hashem saying, I'm accepting your offering. So even on the times where we feel like we have literally nothing to give, we can turn the page and realize that the light is within us. So I want to share with you a similar story to that. I want to share with you the story of this piece of artwork. So not too long ago, we had given some anonymous help to a girl in need. And there was a mediator between us. She had a friend that knew she needed help, and so the friend was asking around for her. And so we gave her some help, and afterward, she said she wanted to send us a thank you letter. I said, it's not necessary. Totally not necessary. It was just, done. We're not expecting anything in return. She didn't know our names, nothing. Okay. And a message came back through the mediator, through the middleman woman, and she said, well, at least let me send them a piece of my artwork. Don't deny me this mitzvah. So we gave her our address, and a couple weeks later, this is what came in the mail. And on the back of it, it says, for anonymous friend, and I guess this was in the Children's Museum, and she was in a phase of life where the most beautiful thing she could give was sitting down and pouring her heart and soul into this design. And I keep it because it reminds me that whenever we think we literally have nothing to give, we forget the things that matter most, and we forget how quickly things can turn when we realize how much we actually have to give inside. Now, there's something interesting also in the package. This is a card of one of the hostages. Now, and it has a parak of Tehillim on the back to read for this guy. Of course, first thing I did was Google him to try to figure out who he was, because, we've been studying for the last couple of months divine providence, hashgacha pratit. And one of the things that we learn from divine providence is that whenever something comes your way unexpected, there's a lesson we're to learn from that, and there's an impact that we're to make from that. And I want to wrap up with one story to really bring all of this together. So it's a story in the early 1960s with the wife of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And she was in a car one evening with her driver headed out of Crown Heights for a little bit. And there was a traffic jam. And there was a big truck on the side of the road, and they were rerouting the traffic. And she asked her driver, she said, can you please stop and go back and see what's happening over there? He said, why? Why do we care? Let's just go around it. And she said, my father taught me to always be on the lookout that if anything out of the ordinary happens, there's a message in it for me, and there's a mission in it for me. So anytime something out of the ordinary happens, we have to look for the message and the mission. So her driver went over, parked on the side of the road. They inquired about it. There was a moving van over there, and they were hauling all the furniture out. And there was a woman standing on the curb wailing and crying. And they inquired about what was going on, and they found out that she had been evicted from her home. She was a Russian immigrant and had just been evicted from her home because they couldn't afford the rent. And she and her children were being put out into the street that night at that very moment. So the Rebbitzin went back into her car, took out her personal checkbook, and wrote a check for $5,000 to move them back into the house. They found out that's the amount that they were behind. Now you understand, $5,000 back then is like $50,000 today. And the Rebbitzin and the Rebbe did not have a lot of money. And she wrote that check for a person she had never seen before, and she never saw again after that day, because she took the lesson from her father, there's something for me in this. Now, we may not all be able to write a check for 50 grand when we see a situation happening, but there's something we can do if we see it. That's what the Baal Shem Tov teaches us. If you see it, it's designed for you. That's Hashem opening the door. And it's our job, the call is up to us, whether we're going to walk through that door. So as we're here today, and we are sitting here learning about shifting our mindset, upgrading our belief system, letting go of those old habits. There will be times where we feel like we're on the top of the world. There will be times that we feel like we have absolutely nothing to give. There will be times when we feel like I am so far from where I want to be, I don't even know where to start. There will be times where we feel like we are so drowning in our current situation that talking about thriving seems a bit like overkill when I'm barely surviving at this moment. Okay, and it can be very airy-fairy, and it cannot feel like I actually have the tools to start taking these steps one at a time. But I think the part that we miss so often is that situation that you're in, that we're in, whatever that situation might be, it's exactly where we are meant to be. It's actually the training ground for the next level of our mission. And I learned a long time ago, I had a coach that taught me to always envision that you are in like the world stage of the Olympics in your mindset of whatever is the obstacle that you are working to overcome. And if you are a world trained athlete, how would you perform in that circumstance? If you had the mindset of the most elevated, high performing CEO or business owner, how would you perform? How would you show up? If you had the wisdom of the most loving, patient, forgiving, empathetic parent, how would you show up? And this concept of pretending, it's like putting on a uniform. And as I put on this uniform, it gives me, you know who used to do this? Kobe Bryant. You remember what his alter ego was? The Black Mamba. Okay? And he would literally put himself through this alter ego exercise that when he stepped onto the court, he was unstoppable. He was invincible. He was beyond what anybody else, he was literally in a league of his own. And it was a mindset that he said as he laced up his shoes, he put on the mindset. So if we realize life is a game, and there's so many, we could go so far with this analogy, like the video game, because it's all really a fake reality. And as we go through new level, new test, you get new prizes, you get new superpowers. Okay?
I don't like games, though.
Yep. Why don't you like games? We'll unpack that later. Okay, video games is a different discussion, okay? But if we realize that you can decide who you want to be at any given moment, and we're going to leave with this. This is our closing thought. You are allowed to change. You can become anyone you want to be. There are two keys. One key is locking in on where you're going. And the second key is understanding that boring, super boring consistency is your ticket. Okay? And what that means is this. In the beginning, we are going to fall off that wagon more times than we're on the wagon. Okay? If you've ever seen the movies like Karate Kid, where he keeps failing and he beats him up and he gets back on and gets, that you spend more time dusting off your elbows and your knees and patching your blood and your band-aids. You spend more time dressing your wounds than living in the glory. But that's where we develop the consistency. So here's my question for you. Are we ready to start embracing some new beliefs so that we can start to loosen the grips on the old ones to start entertaining the new beliefs we want to adopt? Yes? Is it a conversation we're willing to have? Okay, so your mission this week, dun dun dun, should you choose to accept it, is 3 things. Okay? Number 1, be open to divine providence. What does that mean? It means we're just looking. We're open. We're aware. It's like, whoop, the antenna goes up. Okay? And anything that happens out of the ordinary, what do we remember? 2 things. There's a message and a mission for us inside that situation. And sometimes all it takes is us slowing down for 30 seconds to be friendly to a cashier who has had a terrible day. Okay? Today I was blown away. There was actually a woman that in the Sprouts parking lot, I was looking around, there was not a cart holder, aisle, stall thing to be seen. And she walked by, looked at me, looking around. She's like, oh, I'm going that way. I'll take your buggy. I'm like, who does that these days? I was blown away by just that extra act of kindness. Why? Because she was aware of what was happening around her and she didn't have her nose in her phone. Okay, so that's number one, being aware and open to the signs of divine providence. Number two, watch your thoughts and see if you can identify any old habits or limiting beliefs that are alive and real in your world. Okay? Old habits, limiting beliefs. If you catch yourself thinking anything limited, I can't afford it. I don't have time. I'm too busy. Anything that is not enough is a program of limitation. You know, the Rebbe says every Jew should be able to pay $1 billion in taxes because that's how much abundance is waiting for us. That's a mind bender. Okay, number three. Oh, okay, sorry. Back to number two. The other piece of that is think about what you would like to believe instead. Now remember, reality is what you make it. Realistic is a relative term. If you say, that's not realistic. My favorite quote from Walt Disney is he says that he loves making the impossible happen. Okay, so realistic, it's the R word. Okay, it's a new curse word. We don't use this word. Okay, so decide what do you want your new version of reality to be. And there is no such thing as dreaming too big. Now we have to develop the vessels. We have to build the vessels to get there. Okay, but that's where we start, is just dreaming. And then number three, last one, I want to challenge you to start with gratitude first thing in the morning. Okay, does everyone here do Modeh Ani? Okay, if you don't do Modeh Ani, it is the simplest, easy thing that you can do to start your day on the right foot, and it takes what, 5 seconds? Okay, so it is the prayer that you make the minute you open your eyes and you sit up, and it's thanking Hashem for putting your soul back in your body and giving you another day. Okay, then if you take 30 seconds after Modeh Ani and just rehearse gratitude, just for 30 seconds. It could be, thank you for this cozy pillow. Thank you for the snooze button. Thank you for my blackout curtains on the window. You know, thank you, anything, my children, my spouse, my parent, anything, 30 seconds, okay? Do the same thing at night, 30 seconds as you're falling asleep. It is a game changer if you train yourself to drift off to sleep with focused, forced thoughts of gratitude instead of thoughts of stress or thoughts of your task list. You know why? The things that happen in the last 7 minutes right before bed are rehearsed by your subconscious mind over and over and over again while you're sleeping. This is why it's the most horrific thing ever to watch the news or be on social media right before bed. Okay? So if you just take 30 seconds as you're drifting off to sleep and just sit there and go, all the things you're grateful for. Why is this so important? Do you know, remember, the energetic frequency of gratitude is the same energetic frequency of receivership. So the more that I focus on being grateful, the more I will have myself opened up, that I will start to receive more things to be grateful for. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, my friends, that's it. 58 minutes and 47 seconds. We did it. Love y'all. Bye.